like, okay, we're out of here.
Yeah.
This is your problem.
Yeah. Can't tell.
Yeah. Of course, cows don't like cold either.
Yeah, I felt so sorry for everyone's cattle.
We had,
Terrible.
how much time do we have?
Well, it's 7 o'clock.
We had calves, silly calves wanted to go out on the ice on the ponds and play. I don't know why. Twice, 2 different places they fell through the ice.
Oh, no.
So we have a place in Strasbourg, and we go through it. My husband was like, usually they're on the edge, but these were all the way out in the middle. And we had 8 of them fell through the ice, and he says, he calls me and says, I don't know what to do, I don't know how to get them out. So the neighbor came down, the neighbor was going to help him, well, they called the fire department.
Yeah.
So the fire department shows up, and they get out. This, one of them gets out of the cab, and he's got this little pet carrier. My husband said,
I hated to eavesdrop, but that was
he's like, he's thinking maybe there's a special thing they do with it or something. Because the guy says, what are you gonna do with that pet carrier? He goes, they said there was a tassel on the pond.
That's right.
Okay, it's 7 o'clock, so I will call the meeting to order. Is our little wire device set up? Are we ready to go?
I believe so.
Okay. I think I'll start off with by introducing or having our new board member introduce herself.
Thanks, Scotty. I'm Lori Dodson. I'm from Holden originally. I know Georgia, Scotty very well. And I was pleased to be mentioned and possibly coming on as board member. And I'm looking forward to working with you all. I have 4 kids, 23, 22, 19, and 8. And the 8-year-old's the ornery one. I have 2 grandchildren, and they're the best. And George and I were talking about, they're just, when you have grandkids, they just love you more than anything. So that's kind of the best. Looking forward to working with you all. Thanks for having me.
Welcome.
Thank you.
If everybody'd like to introduce themselves, that'd be fine.
Susan Tyler. Oh. You want me to do roll call first?
Sure, yeah, that's fine.
Okay, because someone might be calling in that I'm not aware of.
Okay.
Allison Burton. I thought maybe she'd called in. Fern Deathridge.
Present.
Harlan Dillon.
Here.
Lori Dodson. Here. Georgia Jarman. Here. Ron McMullen.
Here.
Amanda Travis. I think she's here. Judy Tyler.
Here.
Scotty Walker.
Here.
And Judy Walter. Here.
Okay. Do we have any public comments?
We do not.
Okay. How many people are online, do you know?
We have 13 watching currently.
Okay. And no public comments?
No.
Okay. Consent agenda items?
I have a question. Are we having minutes or are we having transcript of our meetings?
I guess that's a question for Tanya.
You say, I don't understand your question.
Well, a transcript is a word-by-word report of what was said at a meeting. And a meeting, minutes of a meeting are like just condensed, touched on it, and
So for some of the things, we're being more, descriptive because there's so much involved in the discussion. And other things we're just, being, I guess it's kind of a compliment.
because if we're doing transcript, then I have a problem. Because they're not accurate, things are left out, and it's just not accurate. If we're doing minutes, then I have another problem. They're too long, they're too detailed. So I went on to Mid-Continent's website today and yesterday, and I watched several of their meetings. They have very long board meetings with different committees that come in and give presentations and stuff. One of the meetings I watched was 2.5 hours. And I looked at the minutes, and the minutes was a page and a half. I mean, it was it might highlight something, discussion was had, and then it would give like whatever they were gonna vote on, and it gave the vote.
If
Very
the board
short.
would like to change the way that the minutes are done, that's something you can certainly vote on in the next way it'll be done.
Tanya, I'm so sorry, I can't hear you.
I said, if that's something that the board would like to change, you can certainly vote on that, and then when you vote on that change, that's the way it will be done.
I'm happy with what we have now. Now granted, this month's was rather lengthy. There's a lot of things to be covered too.
You know, I agree with what Carlin is saying. I've never been in an organization where the minutes were trying to capture everything that was said. And there are needs for omissions to be added. There are needs for correction this time. And it just seems like it is so laborious that we need to look at doing something different. I don't know how Anita can possibly do this. I understand now that we're recorded and that we had not been told that in the past when we asked, I'm told. But I just think there is such an opportunity to manipulate information that we need to do things differently. And I'm not saying necessarily that we're manipulating on purpose. I'm saying just information is incorrect in these minutes. And some of the questions that Carlin asked of the construction people are not in the minutes. And those were important items if we're going to write everything down. And I just think that they're.
Well, as I said, we're not trying to write everything down, but again, if you all want to vote on changing that, we can certainly do it the way that the board votes to change.
If I may throw my 2 cents in, it's very difficult to do the minutes. And last month was an extremely, my notes had arrows everywhere. So I could go back to the way I used to do it, where it was just, I follow the agenda. And so it would be like November minutes correction, the board discussed changes or blah, 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 very broad. Then so-and-so made the motion, this is who seconded, this was the vote, or I may put in discussion ensued. Then at the end, I could put, if you want to hear, now that they're being recorded since we've been on YouTube, if you want to hear the full board, go to this site, and then if somebody wanted to listen to the entire discussion.
And we would,
way.
we would have to have complete trust in the fidelity of that site.
Right.
And I do not at the last, looking, I guess I should say. But, the problem with having minutes like this is that information can be taken out of context, information can be changed, information can be manipulated. And I think it is just a terrible, terrible mistake for us to do this. How many of you have ever been on a board in any other situation where the minutes were like this?
I think
The minutes should reflect the business.
I would just say that the minutes have only been like this in the last year.
2 months.
I think they've been pretty long for quite a while. But I mean, our minutes didn't used to be like this historically. So I don't know why we have to have a vote we never voted to make our minutes like this to start with. So why do we need to vote to make them different?
I think the board can direct me as the minute taker, or if the secretary of the board wants to take minutes.
We know that's just free.
You know,
That
a lot of,
I can go
Sorry.
back to how I was originally doing it. It's just the bare basics, discussion ensued, this was the motion, and I concentrated on the motion and the vote, not the discussion.
that's right.
There was a board, after I did that for a year or two, the board makeup was like, we want to know the discussion. And so it has just gotten to be more and more, and I just, until someone tells me to quit, I just kept doing it.
Well, sure.
So if you want to go back to the shortened minutes,
I do. But don't
I
know
would
if
be
others
okay
do.
with that.
I don't know if others do. You know, it's so easy to have a template of the agenda and just write the actions that we're taking.
Which is what I do.
Well, do we need to make a motion or do we need to just state our wishes?
Well, why don't we just let everybody put their 2 cents on it?
Well,
Let's just make a motion.
okay,
That way, nobody's unhappy. Everybody gets a chance to say what they want.
okay, then I make a motion that we go back to the shortened minutes, more condensed.
I'll second it.
That makes sense.
Okay, I'm sorry. Fern, you seconded?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second to go back to the basic minutes instead of the extended version. All in favor? I guess we need a roll call.
We need a roll call.
Yeah, that's a roll call.
Fern Deathridge,
Yes.
Carlin Dillon,
Yes.
Lori Dodson,
Yes.
Georgia Jarman,
Yes.
Ron McMullen,
Yes.
Judy Tyler,
Yes.
Judy Walter,
Yes.
Scotty Walker.
Yes.
The ayes have it 8-0.
So in light of that, do you want to reserve, passing the minutes until Anita puts together a condensed version for last month?
I don't think that's necessary. We didn't vote until tonight, so I don't see any reason.
You can start tonight.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't see any reason for this version. That would just be more work.
Okay.
All right. Any other discussion on consent agenda items?
Scotty, when do we ask questions about the reports?
We don't.
Excuse me.
Did that not fall under unfinished business?
I beg your pardon?
Could that not fall under unfinished business?
It would seem so.
I don't think it would be under consent agenda.
You think so, or you don't think so?
No, I don't think it'd be under consent agenda.
Okay,
Be under discussion and announcements.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
discussion and announcements. Under discussion and announcements.
Okay. What if it needs an action? Can we do an action item under that?
You on the clock? Because I don't know the questions. I don't know the answer.
So, in general, if there's something that was presented to you in your packet that was available to the public, that would be fine as a discussion item, but any motion or action taking would need to be stated as an agenda item on your agenda. So you could ask that something be brought back to the next meeting as an action item, but it would not be proper for something that was not on the agenda for action to be subject to a motion.
Okay,
Thank
all
you.
right. I'll wait then till discussion. Thank you.
All right,
You want a motion
I
on
want,
the consent agenda?
motion on the consent agenda.
I make a motion that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. We'll take a roll call vote.
Can I offer an amendment to the motion?
No.
That the current set of minutes that we only record.
You
We
could,
just had that discussion.
I beg your pardon?
We just had that discussion.
I know, but I
These
want it
minutes
to
are gonna
apply.
stay the way they are.
I want it to apply to the minutes that are wrong here.
Or are we just nitpicking?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Are we just nitpicking?
Absolutely not.
Well, it seems that way.
Well, I'm sorry it does, Judy, but let me just say this. What is written down here is wrong.
Well, it's
If
what we
we-
submitted.
If we approve it, we're saying, oh, it's okay for our business meeting to be wrong. And I can't believe that that's something you wanted to do.
Yeah, I do.
You want to do it.
I want to show where we have the nitpicky members in this board that demean our director the way they have been.
Well, I'm
An
sorry
individ-
you feel that way.
an individual, policy B101, at the request of an individual board member, any item shall be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda. The request does not require a second or a vote by the board. Any item removed from the consent agenda will be discussed and acted on separately immediately following the consideration of the consent agenda.
Thank you.
So,
In the minutes, I would ask them to be moved to the rest of the agenda. Is that what you're saying I need to do?
that's what it says here, that any member, and it's not to be discussed or seconded, it just done.
Thank you. Thank you. Getting schooled.
So we have a motion and a second on the floor to approve the consent agenda as presented. So
I asked for the minutes to be moved.
do we need to vote this
No,
motion down? No.
because your consent agenda as presented now has one less item based upon your adopted policy.
Thank you.
Okay.
So we're approving the financial report, both, and all three financial reports.
Yes.
So we're voting on the consent agenda B, C, and D.
As I understand it, yes, because the minutes have been pulled out to be discussed separately.
So
We need another motion.
No, the question is on the floor. You're voting to approve the 3 remaining items. It's an up or down vote at this point to approve what remains on the consent agenda.
Are you ready for me to do the roll call?
Yes.
Okay. Fern Deathridge,
Yes.
Harlan Dillon,
Yes.
Lori Dodson,
Yes.
Georgia Jarman,
Yes.
Ron McMullen,
Yes.
Judy Tyler,
Yes.
Judy Walter,
Yes.
Scotty Walker.
Yes.
The motion passes with 8 yeas and 0 nays. And now we can discuss the minutes.
So Georgia, what would,
The minutes?
yes.
I move that we apply our new rule that we just made to the current set of minutes, that we reflect on what was the business that was conducted rather than the narratives which have errors.
We just agreed that we were going to leave these the way they are.
No, we didn't.
Yes,
We didn't take a
did.
vote.
We voted on 3 things.
Before this consent agenda, we agreed that these minutes would remain the way they are. Are
We
you
did-
at this meeting or not?
Judy, I'm sorry, but I would appreciate just a little bit of courtesy.
Really? They don't show it to others.
Okay, now wait a minute. Nobody's being rude to anybody. Nobody's being rude. I don't think it's wrong for a board member, any board member, to say their piece. And if there's questions, those questions need to be answered. Those questions need to be asked and they need to be answered. I don't think anybody's being rude.
My understanding is the consent agenda, we voted for 3 financial reports, and I asked that the minutes be moved.
Mhm.
And now you're asking me what my issue with the minutes were.
Yes, because we have to discuss the minutes right now,
Okay,
immediately after the consent agenda.
and my issue with the minutes is the same one that I've been saying. And that is, if we're going to approve these minutes, we're going to have to go in and make many corrections. If you look at I'll use Carlin's example, she had quite a number of good questions that she asked the contractor last time. It indicated that he had not visited the site. I can't remember all of them, but those are not in the minutes. Those are not in the minutes. His answers were no, and they demonstrated that we had not had a physical inspection of the site for the roofing. And those are important minutes. They were left out. I feel like if we're going to have to go back every month and correct, and we have a record of our meeting that is incorrect, I feel like we need to do something about that. And so my request is that we apply our new rule about the minutes to the current minutes, that we put just the information that was the business that was conducted.
As opposed to spending 2 hours or 3 hours or whatever, going through line by line. saying,
Going through line by line, having to make corrections, having to have them put on next month, having to come back. We've done that. And the minutes are incorrect as recorded here. And I don't mean that in a negative way against Anita. I don't. The job is just, it's just impossible.
So have you made as a motion?
I will.
So, okay, so we can have a motion. If there's a second, then everybody can vote and we'll just go.
All right, I'll make a motion. I move that the minutes for the current board.
January minutes, right?
I'm sorry.
This is what I heard you say when you made the motion the first time. Georgia Jarman moved to apply the new rules to the January minutes by just including the information of the business of the board.
All right, I thought I was talking about the minutes you're taking now, the February minutes.
Well, that's not what.
I'm okay,
Exactly.
I'm okay, I apologize, Judy, I did not realize that's what I said.
Yeah.
We already
I'm
voted
good.
on that.
I'm
But if-
so sorry.
If you want to apply that policy to January's minutes, then you need to make
That's
a
what
motion
Anita
for
has,
that.
is that right?
Yeah.
Thank you, Anita. I apologize, Judy, I didn't realize that I said it that way. So I'm good.
Okay.
Well, no, we did not apply
We didn't
the
approve
new
it.
rule to January's minutes.
Okay,
We applied them to this meeting.
all right. Well, then I do make a motion that we apply it to the January board meeting minutes and record only the business that was conducted.
And by doing so, then we wouldn't approve January's meeting minutes until next month?
No. We would, well, I guess we could have it brought back, probably so. I'm sorry, I'm working through this.
Okay.
And that we would approve them next month.
I second that motion.
And we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Call for a roll call vote.
Awful lot of time expended.
Okay. Fern Bethridge,
Yes.
Carlin, Dillon.
Yes.
I can't write that fast. Lori Dodson.
Yes.
Georgia Jarman,
Yes.
Ron McMullen,
Yes.
Amanda, oops, she's not here. Judy Tyler,
No.
Judy Walter,
No.
Scotty Walker.
Yes.
It passes with with 6 yeses and 2 nos.
Okay,
Okay.
so in light of that, do you want to also make a motion for that to be applied to the November minutes as well? So we would condense those and bring those back again. Because the November minutes,
I'm sorry.
the
I just can't-
November, do you want to also make a motion for that to be condensed? The November minutes as well? Because we had sent you the correction of that. Do you
I'm
also
happy
want
to do that. Here goes. I move, come on guys, help me here. I move that the November minutes, the minutes of the November board meeting adhere to our new format for minutes. Does that make it clear?
Yeah, but we already approved those.
No,
Last meeting, huh? We approved the minutes
Yeah,
last
we
meeting.
All right, I'm fine then.
Yeah, we already been, it's already been approved. It's,
well, but I have
I
a problem with that. We approved a correction. And then our director sent out an email that was wrong and that that what she put in there was right. And then it was entered in as the minutes on the website, and that was not board approved.
This is not board approved. Until it is approved.
Well, that's what we're doing right now.
It was never approved.
And the reason why I have a problem with those minutes is because they're wrong. You go back and you read the part that Tanya sent us an email. I'm cited as making a comment. I was not at that meeting. I was not at November's meeting. Go up to the roll call.
That's when your daughter will have surgery.
My daughter had surgery that day and I was not at the November meeting.
You're right. Carlin Dillon was unable to attend. Well, someone has your voice.
I was wasn't there.
Because I went back and listened to the November,
Live stream.
I did too. Somebody did make a comment, but it was not me.
wasn't you. Okay. My apologies. I thought that was your voice. I was
So-
listening to it.
I was not present. So I have a problem with those minutes.
So George has made the motion to apply the condensed version to the November minutes. So we need a second and then
Because I can go back and
Do we want to fix it
do that.
or do we want to make it adhere to the new?
Well, if you weren't here, we should make it adhere to the new, we can do that, and that should take care
That
of
would be the
everything.
easiest fix.
That should take care of all of it if it's a condensed version.
Mhm.
I think the conversation was much longer. I think you all would remember that there was a very long conversation between Tanya and me, and we had it more than once during that meeting. And I believe that what you see happened, but it wasn't all of it.
No, I wasn't there.
The reason I abstained when we voted, read those.
I
Who is
second,
Who is our
Carlin?
YouTube administrator
I second your motion to make it adhere to the,
to make it adhere?
to the new, that'll be all right.
Uh-huh.
Take a vote.
Are you ready for me to do a roll call vote or more
There's
discussion?
more discussion?
What is it?
Do you have any discussion? Do you,
I'm sorry.
do you have something you want to say?
No, I just want to grouse. I'm sorry.
Okay. Is there any other discussion? Then I'm ready to take the roll call vote.
Okay. Fern Deathridge,
Well, at this point, I'm not real sure what we're voting on.
okay. Georgia Jarman moved for the November meeting minutes to adhere to the new format and just have the business of the board. I'll word it better, Georgia, I promise.
Yes,
Okay. Carlin Dillon,
Yes.
Lori Dodson.
Abstain.
Abstain. Georgia Jarman,
Yes.
Ron McMullen,
Yes.
Judy Tyler,
Yes,
Judy Walter,
I was not at the November meeting, I abstained.
Scotty Walker.
Yes.
It passes with 6 yeses and 2 abstentions.
Okay. Honey, you want,
All right, so, our guests tonight are Tracy Brantner, the Executive Director of Johnson County Economic Development, and Norman Lucas, the Director of Pioneer Trail Regional Planning Commission. And they are here to explain the QBS process for the Warrensburg Roof Project. You have in front of you 3 documents that they're going to reference while they're talking to you. Are you there, Norman?
Absolutely.
All right.
Okay, there
There it is. We lost it.
When he talks, he will be, his likeness will be up
Oh,
there.
so he'll pop up when he's.
Yes, if some of us talk, we'll get that silhouette.
Gotcha. Okay, so take it away, guys.
Well, Norm, if it's okay with you, I'll go ahead and start. If that's okay?
Very well.
Okay. So I'm Tracy Brantner. I didn't get a chance to introduce myself earlier, but I'm the Economic Development Director here for Johnson County. I've been the economic developer for 15 years here. And before that, I started when I was 12. But I was in Nebraska for 15 years, and then I was in Northwest Missouri during the 80s, during the farm crisis years. So had a long career in economic development. When this career goes away, I won't have one because I won't know what to do. This is all I've ever done. But one of the services that JCEDC, who I've worked for proudly for the last 15 years, provides, besides economic development services, is we provide services for communities and cities. In our goals, we have 5 major goals, and I won't bore you with what those are, but basically placemaking and making our places a better place in terms of quality of place, quality of life, and libraries certainly come into that situation, but also building communities, just being good stewards of our community, making sure that people are felt inclusive, that people are welcomed into our communities, that we have a lifestyle that people want. When we're trying to recruit talent to our communities, it's a lot easier if you have quality of place, but the talent today can go anywhere. They don't have to be where they work. They can be working remotely. They can just be wherever they want to be. And so that's why you see many young professionals nowadays that really choose the place to live, and then they choose the place to work. And so the bar is set high in terms of what our quality of place should be here in Johnson County. And so one of the services that we provide is we do help communities do, from time to time, we get asked to do qualifications-based selection, which is QBS, for our communities and for our taxing jurisdictions, because we want to support the people that are actually doing the heavy lifting out there, making our communities better places, right? And so Tanya came to me and she said, well, we need someone to do qualifications-based selection process for our board. And I said, that sounds great, but my plate is full right now doing small business development work. We're also the Small Business Development Center for Johnson County, and I'm the only counselor. So we're, up to our eyeballs in trying to help small businesses survive in the last 11 months. And so, so that's where my plate is currently sort of overflowing. And so I said, well, find a way to get to yes. If we can't do it, our motto is let's try to find a way to get to yes. And so I remembered that Norm had given a presentation on QBS and is well-trained in qualifications-based selection. And so I reached out to him, and Norm said, absolutely. Together, you and I, Norm will be the lead, but I will follow on and help in any way, sort of be the boots on the ground, if you will, for the qualifications-based selection process, which is what I've heard you kind of say is needed in order to, or that you want to do this process because you want to select an engineer to look at the status of the roof, as I understand it. So that's a little bit about me, and then I'm going to turn the floor over to Norm, and he's going to talk a little bit about Pioneer Trails Regional Planning Commission, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the qualifications-based selection process. Does that sound okay? And can everybody hear me? All right? Okay. I usually don't have any trouble with indoor voice. Good. Okay. All right. Norm, if you're still there and you haven't left me. Okay.
Thank you very much, Tracy. I appreciate you introducing me. And as Pioneer Trails Director, like Tracy, I have a background in economic development and also project and grant administration. So in many ways, I have assisted communities, I've assisted counties, I've assisted road districts and water districts with their selection of engineers for an assortment of different types of projects. And I'm here specifically because when Tracy mentioned the need at Trails Regional Library, it was important to me because across our region, so many of our communities are better places because they have Trails Regional Library. in their communities, including, of course, Concordia, where the Pioneer Trails Regional Planning Commission is headquartered. So with that as a kind of an introduction as to why I signed on, I also want to let you know that aside from managing and administering different grant projects in my history, I also have a little bit of a soft spot for libraries. My wife is on the library board for Higginsville here. My daughter has served as the board treasurer for the Marshall Public Library. My sister is a librarian with the Madison, Wisconsin library system. My daughter is a librarian with the Agnes Scott College in Atlanta, Georgia. And my mother, now departed, was retired from the Schaumburg library system in Illinois. So I have a little bit of a background, kind of secondhand, as to the needs of libraries. And I have always thought of them as very important aspects of community life. With all that being said, I think you're very wise to select an engineer before going ahead with any project relating to a building size of the one in Warrensburg with the kinds of roof issues that it may or may not have. And so I am very glad to recommend that you go through the process of selecting an engineer and get as highly qualified an engineer as you can before proceeding with the project at hand. So if you look at that handout, which Tracy very nicely provided to you, you'll see that the qualifications-based selection hinges on a couple of different tools. One being the request for qualification. And the federal law and Missouri state law, both of which apply whenever public money is used for projects and used specifically for engineering selection, tells us that the request to find out more about your engineers when you select them is not allowed to be based upon cost, but should instead be based upon 5 points. Those 5 points enumerated and elaborated upon in the request for qualification. So I have provided for you a request for qualifications for engineers that would be specifically qualified to do the kind of assessment and recommendation that you need for this particular project. And by filling in the blanks of that RFQ, you'll have an instrument that's ready to be sent out to various engineering firms so that you can get sets of qualifications coming back to the board. And then you can, as a board all together, review those qualifications, or you can select a committee of the board to review those qualifications, score them using the second tool that I have provided you. That's the scoring for engineer firms. And then utilizing that objective set of scores, or the full board can do the math to come up with the highest ranked, the second highest ranked, and the remainder of ranks for the engineers who have sent to you qualification sets. And the reason I specify that you rank not only the first, but also at least the second most qualified firm is because if you look on the pages that Tracy has provided you, you'll see that when it comes to selecting your engineer, if the most highly qualified engineer that you select cannot perform the task that you need in the budget, which you have considered the best estimate of how much that engineer should be paid, you are allowed to cease negotiating with that most highly qualified engineer and to begin negotiating with your second most highly ranked engineering firm to see if that engineer can meet your expectation for the cost of the project, as well as also being one of your most highly ranked in terms of quality. And that is how the qualifications-based system allows you to select an engineer based on qualification, but not be held hostage to whatever price that most qualified engineer might want to present to you in terms of the cost of doing their work. With those elements in mind, does anybody have any questions about the process that you'd like to ask?
So will the engineer be involved in the process all the way through the construction phase?
The way that I have crafted this request for qualifications, yes, the engineer would not only give recommendations to the board, but also give specifications if needed by the board to put into whatever contract was put together for the contractor to sign. And the engineer would hang around long enough to inspect the work as it was being done and after it was being done to make sure it was done correctly and properly. I don't have any questions, which makes me wonder if I was clear as mud or if I actually.
So this is something we advertise out for then? Correct?
You can choose to advertise it. However, I would recommend that you send it to engineers, especially if you know of some structural engineers in the immediate region that might respond, and as a result of being in the region, have a little more familiarity with the area and kinds of weather and the kinds of things that a roof in this part of the country has to stand up to.
So when we have this construction done, does it then have to be inspected by the city or anything to deem it safe for the public?
I do not know exactly if the city of Warrensburg imposes and applies its city codes to a building that belongs to a library or a nonprofit group. I assume that they would do that, but I do not know that for a certainty. I can tell you that the engineer, when he performs his construction inspection, he will see to it that it meets the kinds of codes that a library should adhere to.
Thank you.
The direct answer to your question is that it is the policy of the city of Warrensburg presently not to issue permits for governmental entities. So that would be up to your own inspection standards.
Well, I would think insurance wise that if it does end up that we have to take all of this roof off, I think our insurance would want some type of inspection and certification that it is safe for public.
I think you would want that.
Well, yes, I mean, if we're gonna have the public walk under it, then.
The city is not going to provide those inspection services because their present policy is that they do not permit or inspect governmental entity projects.
Right, but this engineer would.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Are there any resources for us? I don't know about the rest of the board, but I don't even know if I know an engineer or have had an experience with one. Are there resources of lists of engineers who have met certain criteria that would be useful to us? Or perhaps a list of maybe countywide or citywide engineers who have had great performance?
Yes, there are lists of engineers, specifically structural and civil engineers, which are the types of engineers that you would want to consider. And you would want to look beyond just the city and county. You'll need to look into the region as a whole if you're going to have more than just a handful of engineers to consider the project. I would recommend that you consider almost any engineering firm on the west side of the state of Missouri.
Right.
Now, of course, there will be some engineering firms that simply don't have a structural engineer or a civil engineer, and so naturally you wouldn't want to send the RFQ to those folks.
So do you assist us in trying to find one?
Go ahead, Norm.
Only if you desire that I do that. If you were to select a committee from among your board, and that committee wanted me to sit in on the scoring of the engineer qualifications, I can do that. Whether or not I would have a vote would be completely and entirely up to you. If you want me to fill out a score sheet, I would be willing to do that. If you do not want me to fill out a score sheet, I'm perfectly content not to do that.
Appreciate that.
And that would be the same way for me, Carlos. Yeah. Norm will be the lead on this project, and I'm just gonna be sort of that local, if he needs it, person here to, walk things to the library or, whatever he needs, so.
But you would be able to provide us with a listing of
Yes.
the engineers.
Yeah, we can do that.
Tracy, are there charges for your services and for Norm's?
There are no charges for my services. Again, it comes back to the heart of what JCEDC, is working for, and that's, quality of place, and libraries are certainly a part of that. And so I'll have Norm answer for himself.
I'm willing to also offer my services with no charge, unless you get into some very sophisticated and very time-consuming issues. At that point, I would have to warn you that you're getting into a position where I would have to impose a charge. But if we can just keep it simple to scoring, let you work with your engineer, then I would not charge the library.
Thank you.
So are there any more questions? Where do we go from here?
So you need to decide whether you're going to do the process as a whole board or whether you want to create a committee.
Could I chime in with a couple of suggestions? So this process that we talked about last month, you can do that on a project-specific basis, such as putting out what they've referred to as QBS, what I refer to as RFQ, same thing. If you put out your RFQ that's project-specific, then if you have another project that comes up, you're going to have to go through that process again. I would suggest that you consider, when you're qualifying engineers, you have a variety of facilities, any one of which might need these types of inspections or services. And so the Missouri law provides that you can do an annual qualification of engineers. And then if you have this list of 3 that's required by state law, you pick your top 3. If you have this stable of your top 3 engineers, then you can call on them throughout the course of that year to provide a proposal for specific scopes of work that you may need. And so I would suggest that you cast a broader net and do an RFQ, identify your 3 firms, and then you can call on them again anytime within that next 12 months without having to go through this process again. I would also encourage you to consider putting out some type of a standard contract form for these firms that says, here's your terms of service. We ask you for a proposal, you give us a proposal, and we'll approve it under this contract. Engineers are notorious for having very complicated, very engineer-friendly contract documents. And so you qualify these firms, and then they slide the contract at you. I would suggest that when you qualify them, that you make it a condition of them submitting for qualification that they agree to your contract for service. I have those documents. It would be very simple for me to provide those to the consultants that are assisting you, but I would encourage you to consider those two factors.
Thank you.
I would agree with both of those.
So back to my original question, where do we go from here?
You do need to decide whether you want to solicit qualifications for engineers for the year or just for the project. And then you also need to decide what date you want those qualifications to come back to you as a deadline. And it's typical to get those qualifications back within a month. And then it would also be a good idea for you to decide how long do you think the engineer should have in order to come up with the recommendations and specifications that you think you would need. I would suggest they would probably need no more than 2 months to come up with the recommendations and the specifications as you would need them. So item B, you would fill in the blank as 2 months. And then down at the bottom, the above information should be submitted no later than, and you could give a month from today's date if you think you can get the RFQ mailed within a few days of the meeting. Those are the 3 things you need to decide tonight.
Okay, so let me clarify. You said you thought we needed to retain the engineer for more than job specific.
I just think from a convenience factor, it's no more work for you to say, we'd like some structural engineers and we might call on you throughout the year for a project. It's no more work to do that than it is to do it for a single project. But then if you find out that there's something in Knobmaster that needs attention, or there's something in Waverly that needs attention, you don't want to have to start this process over if you've just got, here's our structural engineers. And the statute would allow you to do it on a broader basis.
So will they charge us for,
Well, you would get a
possibility of that?
No, they don't charge you for submitting their qualifications.
Okay.
I mean, they're applying for a job essentially.
Right.
And then when you call on them and say, hey, we've got work in Warrensburg, what would you charge us for an inspection of the roof and recommendations on design? And they'll give you that proposal, and that's what he was discussing, that, you know, if that's over the moon in terms of price, then you say thanks, but no thanks, and you go to firm number 2. So you wouldn't actually pay until you approved a scope of work that they provide you when you ask for it.
And you have this form.
Well, there's not, I mean, they would provide you with that, yeah. You're gonna use the solicitation for qualifications that they're helping you with. And I would suggest also a contract for services that they would agree that, yes, if they're qualified, we'll do it under those terms and conditions. For example, the term that I see engineers include in their agreements all the time is, if you sue us, the most you can recover is whatever we've been paid. So all you get's a refund. Yes, I know we misdesigned your roof and it collapsed, but all we're giving you is a refund. And so once they've been selected, they tend to not like to negotiate contracts, but when they're trying to get the work, they tend to say yes to your contract.
So do I understand correctly, we would send this and our proposed contract?
Yes, I would suggest that you include a provision in your RFQ that says submittal of qualifications indicates that you're willing to provide services under our contract for service, a copy of which is attached. And so you send out the contract, and when they send their resume, it's this, they're agreeing that they'll use your contract.
So if they don't like our contract, they don't waste their time because they don't like our contract.
That's true. I will tell you, in my experience with public entities, there are plenty of engineering firms that are willing to agree to the contract.
So do you draw up our contract?
I've got those form contracts. If you all want that, I would be able to provide that with probably less than half an hour's worth of time to tailor it to the library.
So that would be a good move on the part of the board.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
And he thought that'd be a good move.
Yeah, I think that would be a good move on the part of the board.
So we just need to, you supplied a list of engineers to send this to, is that correct?
We have,
Or do we have to get the phone book out and?
I think what I'm understanding is, we need to make a decision if we want to engage with Norm and to get his help with doing this.
Okay.
I think that's right. Am I right?
I think your decision points are number one, that. Number two, if you want to go project specific or if you want to go annual. And then number three, figuring out if you want to evaluate this as a committee that makes recommendations to the board, or if you want to review it as an entire board.
We know that there's probably stuff that needs to be done at Knob Nostric to their roof, at least from what I read in one of the reports, so.
That's news to me. Now I understand the need for that annual
Okay.
engagement.
okay, are we gonna, I think first we need to decide if we're gonna do this as the whole board, or are we gonna appoint a committee? Or do we have to first decide if we're gonna go with them? Is this the route we're gonna take?
I think we should decide if we're gonna do this, and then if we wanna do it as a board or as a committee.
Okay.
So let's decide if we're gonna do this or not first.
I move that we engage in, working with Norm to, do some screening and looking at our engineer options and, decide whether we want to go with the annual or the project, based evaluations.
We include Tracy with that?
I'm
Tracy
sorry, that's
and Norm?
Includes.
It could be one.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, Tracy. And Tracy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Judy.
We're a package deal. We don't come separately.
Okay, so I need a second.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? I'll call for a roll call vote.
Okay, Fern Deathridge,
Yes.
Harlan Dillon,
Yes.
Lori Dodson,
Yes.
Georgia Jarman,
Yes.
Ron McMullen,
Yes.
Judy Tyler,
Yes.
Judy Walter,
Yes.
Scotty Walker.
Yes.
Okay. Passes with 8 yeses and 0 nays.
Okay, so now we know what we're going to do. How are we going to do it? Not from a board or a committee standpoint yet. what do we do next to get this started? I mean, I don't think we need to make a committee tonight. I think we can do that. At least in my mind, we can do that later if we want to make a committee. I think we need to get this going first.
Tracy, what are your, and Norm, what are your best suggestions for us to go forward?
I think you need to decide whether this is a project RFQ or an annual RFQ. And then if the administrator would email my RFQ to the attorney, he can put in the language that he needs to put in to make it so.
Tanya's shaking her head. She knows what to do there.
Well, I think since this building, and we seem to think we have a problem in non-noster too, that it would make more sense to go annually.
I think so.
If an emergency comes up that you don't anticipate, you don't want to have to go through an RFQ process.
Or do we need another motion for that?
Yeah, at this point, if that's the board's pleasure, the motion would be that you send out an RFQ for annual qualification. And then, once you go through that process, that you get a specific proposal for this work.
I'll make that motion.
Well, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to do an annual. An annual RFQ. Is there any other discussion?
And I'm sorry, who seconded?
Vern just seconded it.
Georgia seconded, okay. Thank you.
Call for a roll call vote.
Okay. Vern Deathridge,
Yes.
Carlyn Dillon,
Yes.
Lori Dodson.
Yes.
Georgia Jarman,
Yes.
Ron McMullen,
Yes.
Judy Tyler,
Yes.
Judy Walter,
Yes.
and Scotty Walker.
Yes.
Passes with 8 yeses, 0 nays.
All right. What's the next step, Norm?
And you would need to select a period of time in which you believe the engineer can accomplish what you need. And as I mentioned, I think a 2-month period would be how you'd want to fill in that blank under letter B, and also choose the date upon which you want the qualifications come back to the library as a deadline. And if you have a meeting 1 month from now, you could consider that meeting to be, or a few days before that meeting, to be the date upon which all the qualifications should arrive back for you.
That would be good.
But that won't be a month because we're meeting late this month.
So it might be better to make it part of, make the deadline just ahead of the April meeting.
I would think it would.
Because if we make it before March, it'd only give them a few weeks.
Yeah, and that's.
Yeah.
And
April
besides,
is scheduled for the 21st.
The April 21st, next meeting.
April meeting.
Our April meeting is April 15th.
Goodness, that's tax dated.
So we would want it a couple
How
of
do you
days.
figure that?
third Wednesday.
Third Wednesday?
15th is
That's in, oh, it's, okay, I'm sorry. It is the 21st. Okay.
April 21st. So we'd want the proposal coming back prior to April 21st.
Well, what if we did it like the Monday before the meeting?
Or everybody remembers the 15th. 15th of April?
Is what? Tax day.
Exactly. That would be a Thursday. And our meeting is on a Wednesday, the following Wednesday. I'm afraid if we say that 12,
Make the motion, Judy.
I think you want to ask Norm.
Norm, what do you think?
The 15th might be a really good date in that you would have time for the committee, if you want a committee, to meet and score before the meeting of the entire board. And then on the other hand, if you want to do it as a board, in total, the qualifications would be fresh and you'd be able to go ahead and score it at the meeting or just prior to the meeting.
So make the motion, Judy.
okay, I make a motion that the qualifications arrive here at the library no later than the 15th of April.
Do you want to say specifically arrive to the administrative offices?
Yes, whatever is good.
There's a blank for that in the RFQ, yes.
It's in the RFQ.
And if my memory was right, the RFQ that you have even lists the time of 4 o'clock. Is that correct?
That
Okay.
is correct.
Okay.
Just let them set the timeline and he'll give you a detailed compliant notice to send out.
Okay, so I have a motion, I need a second.
The motion being to make this an annual.
No, to the 15th.
To the 15th.
I'll second.
Who did? I mean, Judy made the motion, who seconded it? Georgia seconded, okay. Okay,
Call for a vote.
all righty. Fern Deathridge,
Yes.
Carlin Dillon,
Yes.
Lori Dodson,
Yes.
Georgia German. Yes. Ron McMullen,
Yes.
Judy Tyler,
Yes.
Judy Walter,
Yes,
and Scotty Walker.
Yes.
Passes, 8 yeses, 0 nays.
So am I correct in saying that we have to select some engineering firms by no later than March 15th?
No. March 15th is when their requests for their qualifications will be in April, I'm sorry, April. So by April 15th, those requests will come in that either the committee or the board then go through.
We score it.
And that's when you score, yes.
So you're gonna get a statement of qualifications, that adheres to whatever Norm puts together. They usually look a lot nicer than this. It's just a copy, but, usually a nice little book that talks about the qualifications of the firm. And they have to specifically, in that statement of qualifications, they have to specifically go through your scoring criteria and answer the questions the way they see fit, right? So your scoring criteria that you have will set the stage or the outline for that statement of qualifications response. That makes sense? Okay. And so those are the things that you, as either a committee or a board, will be scoring based on the score sheet that Norm has provided to you already on your table.
Sounds good.
And then you'll select the first and the second and maybe the third, depending on the number of responses of total scores received.
So to be clear, then, we're asking for an annual
Right.
and with the contract.
Yes.
Okay.
That's what I heard the group vote
Yes.
in favor of.
Sounds great.
Now, do we need to have in a motion that we're going to do it annual.
No, it's already been done.
We did that.
We already, it's in the motion that you made to do it annually.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I see it. Annual. I wrote it. Sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Forgive me. Oh.
And I will rely upon your attorney to prepare and provide the contract, and also to amend the RFQ that I've provided so that it refers to the annual selection and refers to the contract acceptance.
That's no problem. Somebody will connect us by email and
Mhm.
I can turn that around pretty immediately.
Very good.
Any other discussion on this matter?
Do we need a motion to engage Doug to do that for us?
I'm just
You're just
around. as your
just
general
around.
counsel,
Okay.
and call on me as needed.
Thank you.
Should they decide on full board or committee now, or should they wait for that?
It would be nice to know if I'm going to work with the full board or a committee in terms of finishing the scoring.
Sure.
So, do you want to do this as a board or as a committee?
I think if we have some board members that are knowledgeable about that kind of thing, it would be good to have them do something and then let the board approve it.
I feel like it would be more efficient to have a committee than to have the whole board at once making the decisions. Just be a little.
And how big of a committee do you think?
Well, the committee's just gonna score and pick the top three. So a committee would probably be easier to meet than the full board, because if the full board meets, we would have to probably have a special session.
I think a
If you
committee
keep it
is
to
really,
3, you're gonna be under your quorum and not have to worry about sunshine law compliance issues.
That would
Lori,
be
would
my
you be on that
recommendation.
committee? Lori, would you like to be on that committee?
I would be happy to help. I'm not sure what kind of knowledge I would have to be good at that.
Harlan? Would you like to be on that committee?
Once again, I'm not sure if I have the knowledge for it, but I would be willing to, yes.
Okay. And Norma's gonna help, correct? Okay.
I don't know, he's not commenting.
I will help to the extent that you want.
Okay.
Thank you, Norm.
And Judy, do you want to be on that committee or no?
What's Judy talking to?
Judy Walter, I'm sorry.
I can do that, yes.
Okay. Judy, Lori, and Carlin have agreed to serve on this committee.
And then if you'll assign me my role in terms of whether you want me to score or simply not score, just assist, that would be helpful to me.
I feel I want to add something.
About that, I feel like honestly, it would be to our benefit to have him do as much as he can on this.
Yes, I agree.
I really do.
I would agree. Judy, what do you think?
We would like,
To have Norm help us?
Yes. But I don't know if he needs to score, he can bring out the most important parts that we need to look at criteria-wise.
Well, I feel like if we're gonna trust him to help us get through this process, then I think we should trust him enough to help us score. I think his score
Well,
should
and
count.
that's what I'm saying, do we need him to score, or is he just going to advise us?
So if I may, what I have done in the past, when boards have asked me to score, I've asked them to define whether they want that score, if I score, whether they want that score to be added to the average, or whether they want that score just to be a placeholder. For example, what I mean by that is if you as a scorer are going through and trying to score, and then everybody comes back, and then we come up with the average as the 3-person committee, and you guys are vastly apart in terms of that score. Like one person scored very high, one person scored very low, or maybe 2 people scored very low. Then they would look to me to say, okay, Tracy, what was your score? And it's kind of that counterbalance opportunity to think about, okay, what did you think about that item and what was your score? It's not automatically provided. You see what I'm saying? It's just provided if asked, and it's not included in the average. Does that make sense, Norm?
I'm perfectly willing to do that if that's what the.
So it's not a score that's put in the average to offset what the board thought. That's not the point. The point is to be as Judy said, kind of be a point counterpoint to maybe what the scores were by the committee.
I think it would be good to have Norm to do a score and for us not to tie the hands of the committee in terms of the circumstance that exists. Maybe it will be like what Tracy just said, where we really need somebody who can come in and say, here are the reasons why. So I would think we might want to have him score.
Well, I thought he would do that anyhow.
Okay.
Kind of lead us by the hand and say, well, you want to look at this? It's most specific. What do you think, Carlin? And we don't want to tie him up too much.
Well, I think that's kind of what they do though, too. I think that's kind of the point, is to give us the assistance we need to.
If we ask it.
I'm sure we will.
Okay, so I will have you guys do your part, and then the committee can set its own meeting time. And back here next month. So.
Do you want to pick a chair for that committee?
Judy, would you chair that committee, please?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm the old timer, so.
Is there a way that we can meet virtually? Does everybody have that ability on the committee? If we need to.
I can't.
Okay. Is there a Zoom room that we can use here at the library or somewhere that we can? Okay, that we can have Judy come and I could be here, okay.
We actually use GoTo, but yes. We can.
Okay, yeah, sorry. Zoom has kind of become the Kleenex. So. Sorry, yes.
So the committee would need to meet the 16th then to score, right? Is that what we're saying?
Yes. Yeah.
Or would you do it like the Monday before the board meeting?
Well, we've got to get the statements of qualifications to you somehow. And then you guys need to review those and score them at some point between the 15th and the meeting on the 21st.
And I would very much appreciate meeting virtually so that I don't have to make the trip and have to worry about exposures.
Yes, that would be acceptable.
Do we need to meet before then to determine what the criteria is going to be?
Nope, the criteria is already set in the score sheet.
So once Doug gets that all set up together, Anita will go ahead and send that out to the committee.
Okay.
And so you'll know, what you have to send out. You will have to meet before then because you'll have to decide which, engineers you want the proposal and the contract to go to.
So we have just a set list. We have a list of probably 15 regional and basically, like Norm said, Western Missouri engineers that we would send this to. And so what I envisioned was just sending Anita the list so that she can mail it out on behalf of the committee. If I'm not being
So just all 15 and not selecting.
right, we're not selecting at this point. We're just trying to get the word out at this point.
Gotcha.
Trying to get as many engineers to provide a statement of qualifications as possible. If that's acceptable, I might be being presumptuous about, okay. All right.
But she'll send out whatever Doug gets
Okay.
puts together to the committee so you know what went out
Right,
to the engineer.
right.
And that's your best course, yes.
All right, any other discussion on the roof? We'll move on to new business.
Thank you, guys.
Well,
Thank you, Norm.
I still have one more question. If we get the engineer and will the engineer get bids and stuff for the roof, or will we still take RCI's bid? And the engineer will work with RCI.
Once you have recommendations from whatever firm you decide you're doing business with, you'll use those specifications from the engineer to either solicit quotes or go out for formal bids. Again, the engineer will give you some idea. I think it ought to be in this range of cost.
Okay, so once we get the specification, the specs, then we will
Then you'll decide how you're gonna.
post back out for bids.
Yes.
Okay.
That's great.
Anything else? Okay, we'll go to policy updates, Tanya.
Thank you all very much. I'm gonna go ahead and.
Thank you.
Do you want to leave, Tracy?
It has been wonderful. I very much enjoyed my time here. I might come back and just read while you guys are meeting. Because I missed my library, but I want to say that you guys did good work tonight and that this is the right step. And we're here to support that effort. And congratulations to Judy, Harlan, and Lori. I look forward to working with you. That was a great group and we'll have a good time doing it. So it won't be painful, I promise. Thanks. All right, I'm gonna leave a few cards
Thanks, Doug.
if you need them, and then I'm gonna exit as well.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you.
Good night.
Night.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you. Nice, Tracy. Oh, well. I wish.
Sorry, Ella.
That's okay. My watch told me I needed to be standing anyway.
Okay, yeah. I always do what my watch tells me.
That's right.
You see my cell phone. Now it's my watch.
You know, right now you're gonna need one of these, so might as well have it.
Yeah, thank you. Great job, everybody. Take care.
Good night.
And we'll see each other. Thanks.
Bye.
Good night.
Got a couple more, anybody else want one? Judy? Tanya, do you need one?
Judy?
Do you even have any idea? Is it north of here or is it south?
It's north.
North of.
Just go straight up 13 highway. It's about 5 miles, and all 3 of us are from south, right?
I don't think so.
That's right.
I mean, it's out there.
Okay, so, you were sent, updates to, 3 policies with our, expanded Wi-Fi, hotspots, and new devices for circulation, such as laptops and tablets. It requires that the library update our policies with regard to loan periods internet access and filtering and computer access. So, Doug's already looked over these changes and given his stamp of approval. For policy C-103, we had to add quite a bit, for an acceptable use policy, and this will be given out to, everyone who either takes a laptop or borrows a hotspot. They will have to agree to the acceptable use policy, just like they do when they log on to use our, internet computers in building and when they, log on to our Wi-Fi. So the, policy language included covering the use of hotspots and mobile devices, as well as privacy expectations. So I'm condensing, but that's all what this was addressing, in policy C-103. And policy C-102, checkout periods, the language is updated to explain loan policy for technical equipment, which we previously did not loan out, and now we will begin to loan that out. So we had to add that into that policy. And for policy E-104, computer access, we had to also add the language library mobile devices, because again, we did not have those types of things circulating previously, so that language had to be updated. So.
I'm sure I've read it in here, Tanya, but what is the policy if they don't return the hotspots or the computers?
So the hotspots get turned off if they don't return them on time, so they become useless to them. And the devices will also be locked out to them if they're not returned. And then of course they're charged after a certain amount of time. And I don't remember what the cost of the other devices, but I know the hotspot's $25. So,
Okay.
but as long as people return things, those charges come off of their account. So.
Okay, because my concern was that if they don't turn it back in and we turn it off, then it's dead to them. They'll just throw it away because it costs them nothing.
Yeah, in the experiences that we've heard of other libraries, that really just doesn't happen. I mean, it might take them a long time to return it, but once they can't use it, they just, bring it back. They might put it in the book drop. Hopefully not, because they're not supposed to do that, but they might just dump it in the book drop because they're embarrassed that it took them so long to bring it back. So they just put it in the book drop.
But they will eventually be charged if they don't.
They eventually will be charged if they don't bring it back, and if they never bring it back, and then 5 years down the road, they come into the library, they want to use something, that charge would still be on their account. So, and, we would work with them to pay that back if it was something that was prohibitive, but, we would be expecting them to pay for that. So if you're okay with the updated language, go ahead and make a motion.
And you said the lawyer looked at this and.
Oh, yeah.
I make a motion that we accept the new policy updates. Do I have to be specific?
Can you please say the policy numbers, please?
For policy C-103, C-102, E? Yes, E-102. And what was the other one?
E-104.
E-104.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to approve policy C-103, E-102, and E-104. Is there any discussion? None appearing, I'll call for a roll call vote.
Okay. Fern Deathridge,
Yes.
Harlan Dillon,
Yes.
Lori Dodson, Georgia German.
Yes.
Ron McMullen.
Yes.
Whoops, almost said Amanda's name. Judy Tyler,
Yes.
Judy Walter,
Yes.
Scotty Walker.
Yes.
8 yeses, 0 nos. It passed.
Right. Okay, proposal for payroll timekeeping system.
So, last year I asked the office manager and the assistant directors to research payroll and timekeeping systems. The library currently uses a system called Time Station. While it is very inexpensive at $400 a year, it is definitely a case of you get what you pay for, and that the software does not have the features and organization such as ours requires. The reporting features are time intensive. It does not track leave time. PTO is currently tracked by hand using an Excel spreadsheet. And this has led to numerous errors in leave balances when information is transferred from the library to the external accountant. Additionally, a more robust system such as ADP will remove administration and give branch managers increased authority and oversight on approving and tracking branch staff requests, as well as allow employees to have on-demand access to their leave balances. Furthermore, the ADP system will protect the privacy of employees' information, since requests will not be submitted via paper and have to go through the courier service. Bringing the payroll function in-house will also reduce mistakes such as employees being paid overtime or unearned holidays or checks being issued to employees that are no longer at the library. These are all things that have happened numerous times. We currently pay the external accountant $768 a month for services which include processing our payroll. And I requested a quote for fiscal year 22 without the payroll services, and the cost would reduce to $495 a month if we were just using ADP. So Kyle is now going to go through the proposal, and Kyle, Anita, and Karen Churn are the three that worked on getting this information, and it came down to pay for, but we believe that ADP is the better choice for us. So Kyle, if you want to go ahead and
Before we start, who is in charge of doing and overseeing this now?
So that's the thing. So right now, the office manager tracks the leave on an Excel spreadsheet. Time Station, the employee clocks in, but Kyle has oversight into that. Anita has access to that, and Karen Turn has access to that. So because the reporting feature is not user-friendly, it's not easy for the branch managers to go into. That information used to take is something separate that Karen has to send over to the accountant. And more times than not, that information isn't entered in properly. So when people are getting their check stubs, their leave balances are incorrect. So on top of the other things like, you know, someone not on the payroll getting a check, or there's holiday pay for someone who doesn't get a holiday, or you know, things like that. So because we're bringing it in-house and we're using ADP, that would lessen those kinds of things.
So each branch manager is not in charge of their employees.
No. They can look at their time, but when mistakes are made, it's Karen going in and correcting. And we want to put that back onto the branch.
But we can't do that.
ADP, much more simple program. So let Kyle go through this proposal.
Okay.
And then he might answer some of the questions that you already have. And if not, you can ask your questions, and between the three of them who saw the proposal and who will do it, they will do the rules that were in this system, setting it up and training staff, and they'll be able to answer your questions.
Okay.
Kyle?
Yes, okay. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
All right, so you should have in front of you the board proposal that we put together. I, in error, said that this was for fiscal year 2021 in the header. In the body, I made that correct. It's for 2022, so this is for next budget year.
I fixed it, so theirs is correct. Just the one that you have still has
Okay, so I just called myself out. Okay. As Tanya described, since 2014, we've been using a service called Time Station. And over time, we have found not only that the operation of the service itself has some failings, we also are lacking quite a bit of functionality from competing services. So over the years, we have discussed replacing it numerous times, and finally, as she said, Tanya requested that we evaluate some alternatives. Starting last fall, we started looking at some alternative services, and with the objective of finding one that would improve all managers at the library district, including primarily branch managers and department heads, improve their ability to manage time and data related to their personnel. Now, the side benefit, of course, is that this will actually benefit and give more information to people regardless of their role, whether they are frontline staff, supervisor, or an administrator. So what we're actually proposing and asking for is for the board to allocate or to approve the allocation of $10,000 in the library's budget for fiscal year 2022 to cover the costs for the ADP service. That is an annualized estimate from ADP. You should also have that paperwork in front of you that shows what they estimate these costs to be on an annual basis. It is not, their estimation does not equal $10,000, but as with many other allocations in our budget, we do give ourselves a little bit of flexibility so that should things change throughout the year, we can adjust as necessary. The way that billing works with ADP is that we are billed per payroll processing, and that cost is a per employee cost. So as employees resign or retire, if the number of our employees goes down that are currently being paid by the library while we are replacing someone as there's turnover, then we will be charged less because we have fewer employees. And there is no minimum as far as the number of payrolls that we have to process with them. It is an agreement and not a contract. So if we enter into an agreement with them, we can decide at any time that we would like to look at other alternatives or get all of our data back out of this service. That is a question that we asked all of our vendors, was, how easy would it be for us to get our information back out? For one thing, we have record retention laws that we have to comply with. And so we want to make sure that that information is stored safely and securely, in some cases in perpetuity, as the retention law dictates, but also in case we decide to go with another vendor if ADP doesn't end up suiting our needs the way we anticipate. The implementation timeline that we have there, this was drafted with an earlier board meeting in mind, but we should still be able to be very close to this. If this month the board just doesn't decide to approve the proposal, then we could be granted access to the Workforce Now platform immediately. The rep from ADP said that that would not be an issue at all, that they could give us access very, very quickly so that we could start entering our employee data. Because so much of what we do is on paper, we will have to, we primarily being Anita, Karen Churn, and probably a little bit me, we will have to enter a lot of our employee data into this system so that we have access to, for instance, withholding elections, things like that, payroll rates, things of that nature, so that this system can actually function. So we're estimating, and this was also, this timeline was discussed with our rep at ADP, and they seem to agree that this was a reasonable time frame to get all of this done with our size of organization. So between February and April, we will get all of our data entered, and the initial configuration and testing of the system will be completed. In April, we will begin training for all supervisors. Obviously, we want to get them aware of what's available in the system as quickly as possible, so that that is something that they are more familiar with and more comfortable with, so that as we in May start training the frontline staff, then they will be able to shepherd them through that process as well. Obviously, we hope to have ample training provided, but ultimately they do look to their supervisor. Most people do look to their supervisor for guidance, and so we want the supervisors to have that advanced knowledge. In May, when the frontline staff are trained, then access to the employee portal and mobile apps will be given to all employees. These apps do give access to a variety of important information, which I can cover in just a moment. Then between May and June, hourly staff will begin to use ADP to clock in and out for testing purposes. During this time, we will be clocking in and out using two different systems. So we will maintain records in TimeStation as well, so that we have a backup. If something unforeseen were to occur with ADP, then we would have an accurate accounting of people's time during that period. July 5th then is projected as the beginning of the first pay period of the new fiscal year, and that would be the first that we're projecting that we would use ADP to process that payroll. And then the payday for that pay period is July 23rd. And that would be the first time that we would be billed by ADP. And it would, again, just be the per employee cost for that payroll processing. On the flip side of this page, you'll see some benefits. Again, the information provided from ADP goes into a little bit more detail, but I just kind of nutshelled things for you. One of the big benefits that's listed first is the different manager roles. As Tanya mentioned, this ADP will give us the ability and the flexibility to assign different roles to different staff members depending upon their job duties. So if a branch manager or a department head needs to have access to their employees' data, which they do, then we can, based on their responsibilities as an employee, we can assign them permissions to see that data while still maintaining the privacy of other employees' data. Right now, that is much more difficult to access and much more difficult to manage, because again, so much of our process right now with employee data is on paper. So again, the other thing mentioned that is a big benefit that I mentioned here in manager roles, they will also be able to monitor scheduling, which does include automatic reporting showing tardiness and absenteeism. So hopefully those will be more prominent and easier for managers to address. They can monitor punches in and out. They can run reports on attendance and time accrual, and they can manage and approve PTO requests. The second point here is payroll control. For the reasons that Tanya just enumerated, that we have a variety of issues with our current payroll system. And so being able to have a little bit more control and being able to fine tune the reporting that is provided in our payroll system would be a huge benefit. ADP will also, or the Workforce Now platform provided by ADP will also take care of the direct deposit benefits and withholding calculations, tax payments annually on the part of or on behalf of the library, and then W-2 generation for our employees to do their taxes. The third point is for better staff communication. This simply is intended to communicate that we currently, again, as I said before, we currently have a system that is primarily based on paper. And the information that is currently available to employees is fairly limited and can be time intensive to provide. A request has to be sent to HR, and they have to then produce the documents and provide them. With the mobile apps and the employee portal that will be available to employees, they'll have on-demand access to their PTO, payroll information, pay stubs, past stubs as well, benefit information, personnel policies, and shift schedules. They can also communicate directly with their supervisor if they want to use PTO or have other requests. Certainly, this is not the only way of communicating with their supervisors. In many cases, they can communicate in a variety of ways, but this is one way that can improve the ability for us to track these kinds of requests and make sure that things do not get lost. The fourth point is improved onboarding. We have identified for a number of months that onboarding is something that we want to address at Trails. We want to bring people on and make sure that they are ready to perform the duties of their position so that it benefits our patrons as quickly as possible. And so we have taken steps to improve our onboarding, but Workforce Now actually does feature some onboarding features that would allow us to be able to automatically walk a new employee through a variety of whether it's pieces of paperwork, withholding elections, reviewing policies and procedures, and all of this would include the ability to quiz an employee after they have completed the individual steps in the onboarding process, so that we have a better idea whether the information was clearly communicated and they have a good understanding of what it is that we were trying to get across. Lastly, improved HR documentation. Having the paperwork that is currently literally paperwork in our employee files digitized and in a central repository where HR staff, staff managing payroll, supervisors, a variety of responsible employees can access it would be a huge benefit. Being able to get to that information on a moment's notice so that I can answer a question for a branch manager, or that a branch manager can answer for her staff, his or her staff, would be a huge improvement over what we currently have. The way that we're managing our documents now makes sense from a historical standpoint because we have done it via paper for a long time. Our practices are sound as far as legal requirements and things like that. It's just not nearly as efficient as it could be. So that's kind of the proposal in a nutshell. Does anyone have any questions that I may answer?
Hey, Kyle, I do. I'm new to this, so bear with me. I am kind of familiar with these programs, so Did you say it would go live in July? Pretty much?
That's the projected start that, for us to, begin using it for our payroll, yes.
Okay, and then, now is this just for Warrensburg, guys?
No.
So this is,
No, this would be district-wide.
and you've decided that it's less expensive to do it this way than what you're doing now, correct? Or no?
It's more expensive.
How much more was that? Did I hear?
It's kind of difficult to put a number to it, honestly, because of the amount of staff time that we're currently using to manually figure things and retrieve documents for people and things like that, and the time lost to answer questions and things like that. It is difficult to put a number to that, but yeah, so it's not simply a cost savings. It's also an attempt to return some of that control back to managers and supervisors.
It sounds like there's a lot more benefit to this program than what you currently have. And you said that it was 2013 is when you got this one?
2014.
Okay, so that's really dinosaur and these kind of things, you know? So,
Right.
I mean, it's changed even since then. So I definitely feel like it's worth looking at. Definitely, this is my opinion.
And what is the cost of time station that we're currently using?
$400 a year.
400.
More.
And that's about what,
400 a year or a month,
A year.
A year.
$400 a year?
A year.
as opposed to 9,000?
10.
10,000.
Yeah, well, I was looking at the,
So has any attempt been made to try to in-house better your system that you're working with now? So why don't you?
Well, this is what we're trying to.
That's what we're trying to
That's
do.
what ADP would be.
You can do that without this computer program and all of this. You need to talk to your supervisor. There's such a thing as called a phone and text message.
Yes, but
Where's it going?
we're not talking about just communication. We're talking about actually being able to track.
Right, but the thing is you're gonna outsource all of this, and we have a local accountant that's doing it now. Writing out checks and,
Cut her pay at about half.
I'm sorry,
I
what,
said
Judy?
it's going to cut her pay because she's doing all the figuring.
Correct. So we're gonna take away from a local entity.
The only thing that we're taking away from them is the processing of payroll and reporting of leave time. They'll still be doing the financial documents and financial statements. We're bringing it in-house, not just for managers to be able to have more reporting functions and for staff to have quick access to their information, but also because there have been lots of mistakes. So to cut down on those mistakes, we're gonna bring it in-house, we're gonna use this system. ADP is very well known. They're gonna take care of some of the things that the accountant has, like for instance, right now, we've been getting notices from the IRS saying that our payroll is not.
But isn't that our current accountant's job?
Yes,
So if we have a problem with the accountant, why aren't we finding a new accountant? That's what she's saying, we do have a problem with it.
so from the payroll standpoint, there have been issues, but that's because our system is, like Lori was saying, is antiquated. To use a good system like ADP, like a Paycor, is what we need to do.
But in my opinion, at this stage, I think we should forgive this right now and just continue doing what we're doing for a length of time and see what happens later.
think we should just keep doing what we're doing? Is that what you're saying?
Well, having worked in HR for many, many years, I can tell you that it would save time and money to have up-to-date software. Because especially with things like benefits administration and things, saves a ton of paperwork. A lot of things that they can go online and do themselves that somebody else has had to lead them through.
A lot of ins and outs.
I think it's gonna be much more efficient than what we're doing now.
Who will be saving time? If we adopt this, who is saving time?
I'm sorry, what?
If we were to adopt this, who is saving, I keep hearing that it's gonna be a time saver, but who will be saving time?
So, Karen, Anita, branch managers, employees, because it takes time to retrieve this information. So you got all these people asking questions and then pulling information and then grabbing this paper and going into this file and then sending information. If we have ADP, the employee can go right to their account and see what their leave balances are. If someone is routinely tardy, the manager is getting that information immediately, and the manager is the person that is correcting the information in the system instead of Karen Churn, which is how it should be. Branch managers should be overseeing and managing their employees' time. Karen Churn is not a branch manager, so she
So
should.
why is it done that way then?
But except for,
Because time station is not the right kind of system for us, because it is over.
They've grown, is what she's saying. They've grown out of the. It's just so much fault now.
This is Karen Churn. May I speak for a second, please?
Go right ahead.
I looked up how often I have to go into Time Station to change people's times or to do manual punches. And since January 1st of 2019, I've had to do that 1,422 times. Now, if I have Time Station open already, then it might take me 30 seconds. If I have to open the program, it's going to take me 2 minutes. If you multiply that by 1,422, it is over 1 day of just going in and making adjustments.
I make a motion, we approve this system for the efficiency of the employees and the time saving. Do I need to add anything else?
Judy, could you actually make that, you approve the allocation of $10,000 in the library's budget
Yes,
for this system?
$10,000 in FY '22. To approve this system and get it rolling.
just $10,000 a year, every year?
Well, it could be more.
Kyle? The question was, is it $10,000 a year every year?
That, again, that is an annual estimate. So,
Aren't we
so
also
they,
paying an annual fee now? So it'd just be a little more.
It's the charge is based on how many people are utilizing it. So
It's-
if we have 55 employees, we're charged by 55.
But your part-time
If the-
employees don't have any need to use this, correct?
Well, they will.
No.
They'll clock in, they'll clock out.
They have to clock in and out.
They get paid, figure there's time.
We'll use it for training too, Scotty, like onboarding and training and paperwork and stuff like that.
It also will be able to use to store and track their evaluations. Which right now, again, is just paper, so they can't look back at their evaluations. They have to request a copy. So it gives employees a lot more access to their records, protects their privacy from everybody else.
That's if it doesn't get hacked. I'm sorry, I'm old school. I don't understand why each branch manager is not keeping track of their employees and then reporting monthly to the main office. Or however you guys pay, whatever your pay period is, if it's every 2 weeks or if it's every 30 days. I don't understand why each branch manager is not in control of their branch and controlling that. They're there, that's what the managers are there for. And then,
that's what this.
but you can do that without this program.
But it's not, it won't be efficient, which is what we have right now.
We don't know that because you haven't tried it. You're trying another program.
What do you want them to do?
We keep payroll every week.
But right now,
I don't have as many. I don't have as many employees as they have, and I don't do direct deposit. But what I'm saying is each branch manager should be in charge of keeping track of people's time, and if they're late or if they're.
They don't have that ability now.
Why not?
Because they don't, the program doesn't allow for it.
No, I'm not saying the program, I'm saying the branch manager.
Well, they have to use a program in order to get it into the computer. And it's not allowing them to do that.
We just hired a whole new IT program people. Why can't they come up with something?
The people that we hired are not IT.
In today's world, we have to use software.
They help the public.
I don't think people heard. Fern made a good comment. Were you able to hear her?
No.
I said, in today's world, you have to use computer software to.
Well, I agree. I mean, I don't have as many employees. I don't know how many employees we have.
54.
54. I don't have
We're
54.
just talking about payroll, and this software.
Does more than that?
Yes.
It does more than that because of the benefits administration. If you've ever had to deal with employee insurance and getting them all signed up and all that kind of stuff, it's 10 times as easy if they can do it online. And the postal service is so screwed up these days that you can go online and do something in 5 minutes. So if you have to fill out papers and mail it in, it takes a week. It's just, there's a lot of benefits to having up-to-date software.
So Judy made a motion.
Yeah, I'm just having a discussion before I ask for a second. So is there any other discussion?
Well, I don't know. I'm still just really confused. I understand they're using it for training and other things, but what do we have managers for?
Managers haven't been able to manage anything for a long time. We used to be able to do that. Now they can't do it unless they have a separate spreadsheet. And that's duplication of work.
When you've got a central office for a large number of locations and employees, you have to have a central payroll, a central benefits administrator, a central everything. I worked for Missouri Valley Community Action Agency. We had 7 counties and we had 200 employees, 300 employees sometimes. And I was trying to do all that stuff. And it takes a lot of time, especially benefits. There are so many different benefits. There's health insurance, there's dental programs, there's vision programs, there's all kinds of things. And if you've got that online where it's all They can go in and fill it out, and if they don't fill something out right, they won't go on to the next step. And it's just a big help.
So Lori, you say that you work with this stuff?
Well, I work for Golden Valley Hospital, and so we do a lot through our online program, clocking in and out, and their CBLs, and just different things that we have to do and that they're required to keep record of. And so if there's anything that we're required to keep record of, it's really beneficial to have a program like this, especially now, because there's just so many things that change so quickly. That's all I'm saying about it. I think it'd be a good gesture to help everybody in this. So that's my opinion.
If I may, we do have a comment from excuse me, a staff member in the a branch manager in the comments on YouTube. I don't know if you all want to entertain that. You let me know.
I want to hear it.
Yeah.
Okay. It's Laura Parent, our Knob Nostril branch manager. She says, I can say that TimeStation is not very user-friendly and accessing reports for my staff is not easy. This system would save my time. Branch managers are not always available. We get sick, we take vacation. Asking us to notate employees' work hours will not be accurate.
I guess I see the need, but I guess my question is what are we going to do? We're saving so much time, but what are we going to fill that time with? We got self-checkout machines, but we're not reducing the number of people behind the desk. We're reducing the amount of work that they do up in the office, but we're not. What are we going to do with that time that is being saved?
Books. The self-check doesn't really impact this because this is this isn't gonna impact frontline workers.
But I understand, but we buy a machine to do the job of somebody that used to sit over there, but we're not getting rid of that person over there. So what are we going to do with all this extra time that builds up?
So the self-checks were for several reasons. The self-checks were to limit the amount of personal contact during times like now, when people should be socially distanced, but it also will allow staff to do more things like programming and when we hope things get better, do one-on-ones with the public. Because right now, library staff is responsible not just for circulation, but also for programming. So we don't have just staff that just sits at the desk and does check in and check out. They have lots of other duties that they're responsible for. So if we have someone doing programming, we have someone doing some kind of inventory in the stacks, and we have one person at the desk, and there's a line, and someone doesn't want to wait, then they're able to use the self-checks. If it's after a couple of programs have ended, like story time, and it's very, very busy, and people don't want to wait because their kids are ready for their nap or they're ready for their lunch, they can use the self-checks. So that's what that's for. For administration, for Karen Churn's time, she can now spend more time looking at the financial statements, keeping on top of the accountant for the financial statements and things like that. We may give her other projects that are related to that, or she may help out in a different area, such as sometimes we get backed up in technical services. She may be assigned to do some work back there to help with Nate's department. Right now, the amount of time that she's spending doing something that actually should be a branch manager responsibility is what we're trying to rectify.
Tanya, may I add something as well?
Sure.
Not only that, if I take over all the responsibilities for payroll, that means that I will be filing the taxes. I will be responsible for making sure that direct deposit. I will be responsible for those things, not the accountant anymore. So I will be filling my time. It just will be in a different way.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Has everybody had their say? We need a second if somebody wants to second.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Can you read back the motion?
Yes, Judy Walter moved to approve the allotment of $10,000 in the fiscal year 2022 budget for the, what I say, purchase or for ADP.
Take a roll call vote.
Okay, Fern Deathridge? Yes. Harlan Dillon?
You can vote against it.
Well, I'm just not convinced.
That's what I'm saying. You can vote either way.
No.
Lori Dodson?
Yes.
Georgia Jarman?
Yes.
Ron McMullen?
No.
Judy Tyler?
Yes.
Judy Walter?
Yes.
Scotty Walker?
No.
I have 5 yeses and 3 nos. That passes.
Okay. Annual report.
All right, in front of you, you have the hard copy of the fiscal year 2020 report. Sarah Evans, our services coordinator, is going to talk a little bit about this. Yes.
How long is that going to take?
Sarah, you there?
Do you know how long that will be?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, I'm sorry. It won't take just a moment. You've got it in front of you. I just wanted to say a few things about it since I'm here to present it. So I won't take up too much of your time. So I'll just go ahead and get started. The fiscal year 2020 strategic plan is an 18-page snapshot into the heart of our library. It does include the most basic information about our library, such as governance, locations, budget, and statistics, which highlight our 8-branch, 1 express branch system covering Johnson and Lafayette counties. The stories told after page 10 include the incredible services provided by our staff, both before and at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. These stories include staff writing grants for special exhibits in the branches, like the Divided Loyalties Civil War exhibit hosted at the Odessa, Holden, and Warrensburg branches in late 2019 and early 2020. You'll also find examples of staff pivoting programs to fit the constraints brought about by the pandemic, including altering our Missouri State Library grants to make presenters virtual, bring story walks to communities, and to provide weekly story times on our library Facebook page. Our staff are again highlighted as some of the library's best assets through their work completing capital projects, attending professional development, and partnering with local and national organizations to bring innovative programs and services to our patrons in the district. While the stories told in this long report still only show a fraction of the hard work and dedicated service that we provide, I think our library director, Tanya Shelton Council's note summarizes the spirit of the document best. She says, Trails Regional Library staff exceeded the challenge of service delivery and the organization has come out the better for it. In the tumult of FY20, we were able to lay the foundational groundwork to transition from a good library to a great one. So that's my my little piece about the annual report, but I'm happy to entertain any comments you have.
This will be posted on the website tomorrow.
Very nicely done.
Thank you.
Do we need a motion
Questions
to
for
accept
staff?
this or just informational?
It's just information.
Okay.
Thank you, Sarah. It's a very, very nice informational put together booklet. Thank you.
Okay, next up, and I don't have the agenda that came out originally, so, but the next up, we need as you know, Tanya has resigned or has offered a resignation. We need a motion to accept her resignation.
I'll make a motion to accept it.
Vern makes a motion to accept her resignation.
I'll second.
Georgia seconds. Any discussion or comments?
Thank you for your service, Tanya.
Okay, I'll call for a roll call vote.
Vern Deathridge. Harlan Dillon.
Yes.
Lori she left. Georgia Jarman.
Yes.
Judy Tyler.
Yes.
Judy Walker.
No.
Scotty Walker.
Yes.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have 5 yeses and 1 nay.
So now we need the previous 2 directors we hired, we had a committee that put out the search and did the interviewing and then brought their recommendations back to the whole board. Do we want to do it that way again, or does someone else have a different recommendation? Previously, the committee was Ron, me, and both the Judys.
And I was not really able to serve on the last.
That's true, yeah. I would rather not be on that committee this time, so just after discussion.
I would rather not.
Okay.
You all voted to accept her resignation.
Where did you,
Well, I considered,
how did you go about?
but I figured it wasn't gonna make any difference.
Previously, the committee met in Odessa.
We can meet anywhere.
We can meet anywhere.
No, I'm saying, how did you go about recruiting? Did you advertise?
So we advertised. Anita, can you help me out on that? What did we do?
I think Sarah and Kyle could probably help better than Sarah.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So we advertised on the 2 local library listservs. We paid for advertisements there and through the American Library Association. We send it to the iSchools at Emporia State and Mizzou. We advertise on Facebook, our website, all of the local newspapers, and I believe we sent it to a few other listservs within the state for library workers. But I can send it anywhere else you'd like as well.
I don't know where else you would send.
Pretty much.
Let's have Ron and Lori and who else is?
Well, we could I could check with Allison to see if she'd be interested. Are you interested?
Yeah, I would be on a committee.
Just kind of your background, isn't it, personnel type? Okay. So I don't want to be, Judy doesn't want to be, or did you say you didn't want to be? No, you're on the building committee.
I'll vote.
No,
Okay, so Fern and Georgia,
You don't think somebody from the,
you said you'd ask Alice.
Allison.
I'll ask Allison, yeah. And I'll check with Ron. That would give you 4.
I was just thinking maybe somebody off the
They have to come from the board.
officers of the board.
Oh. Well, I want to talk to Ron. Okay, so Fern and Georgia,
Allison
and I'll check with Allison and Ron. And I'll report, I'll email you, to let you know what they say, so. If you, Sarah, if you can go ahead and, well, I don't want to take over the committees.
They
I
need to
think we
do
need to
that.
get started, so,
Need to get
yeah.
just use something you had before and get some ads out.
Sarah, can you take care of that?
I can. Did I hear correctly that we're using the same ad?
With modifications possibly.
Okay, I can work with Tanya
Let's do
to
the ad
get
first.
you, yeah, I can work with her to get you a copy of that before I send it out.
That would be great. Thank you.
Mhm.
I just want to say that this proposal that Kyle went over with us is the kind of thing, we've talked about wanting to know when we're spending money and what we're spending money for. And this proposal was well done. And I wanted to thank you, whoever put it together, for doing that and encourage you to do that for other expenditures, especially big ones that come along. And I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much for saying so.
The fact that we got it ahead of time, I think is the big plus.
Isn't it great to know ahead of
We had
time?
it, we had time to read over it and digest it before we came in here and heard his dissertation
Right.
on it.
And if it's not a line item in the budget and it's a lot of stuff, a lot of money, we really need to see it if it's over 5,000.
I have to say the last few proposals we've had have been exceptionally 100% better, being informative and just a very useful tool to use in making our decisions. I think they've been much improved.
Well, does anyone have any announcements? I would like to, Tanya, I wish you the best.
Actually, but I think Georgia had something.
Okay.
You wanted to,
And staff.
You had something that you wanted to discuss about the staff
I'm sorry,
report?
I just can't hear.
You had something you
Unhook
wanted to
your-
discuss from a staff report? Earlier, you were talking about a staff
Oh.
report?
Yes, I wanted to know about the credit card scanning and how much that costs and how much money we are taking in at each of our libraries to warrant that expense as well as the bank expense to process those
Which
payments.
report are you talking about a credit card scanner?
What report?
We're
I'm
talking about
sorry,
the,
I just have old ears. I apologize.
it's in reference to the PCI compliance. If we're gonna start taking credit cards,
That cost is already, it's already tabulated in the cost for the self-checks. So it's not
there's not an additional percentage
That's
points
already
that we have.
been,
We take a lot of money in.
Small amounts.
not right now, no, we don't.
Yeah. It's probably
But-
small money.
but
This is a convenience for people to be able to pay because they ask, do you take cards? Previously, we were using something called Stripe, right?
Oh, yes, you're right, you're right.
Stripe. But,
What were they buying?
Copies.
Copies?
Or they're paying for
or
lost
they're paying for
books.
lost books, or they're
or-
paying for their,
If somebody's coming in and buying 3 copies and they're putting it on a card, we're losing money. That's all there is to it.
That's not what they were doing. They were putting in large amounts.
Yeah, but as a store owner, I know people come in and they want to spend 50 cents on a card, and I just had to put a stop to it because
well,
it costs.
the thing is, Scotty, because we're a public library, we have to have the ability to offer things to people across the board. So,
I think we have the ability to
Not-
say cash or check only.
but that's not realistic, because there are a lot of people that don't write checks now, and there are a lot of people
I said
that,
cash or check only.
and there are a lot of people that don't carry cash. So we have to have the ability to
You can
serve
say,
everybody.
there's an ATM right up the road, or if you want 100 copies, maybe you're at the wrong place. Maybe you need to go to a copy place.
That's not
customer friendly.
a public library. It's not good customer service. It doesn't make people feel welcome to turn them away. So,
I think most people use debit cards instead of credit cards.
But that costs the same.
and people come here because we are less expensive than a copier. So we're providing a service to the community. So they don't want to go to FedEx or UPS or whatever the copier store is in their neighborhood, if there is one. In a lot of our towns, we're the only place that they can make copies. So we don't want to have any barriers to someone being able to use.
Well, I have to admit that because of the pandemic, I have used my credit card for a lot of very small charges, simply because I don't want to handle a cash.
I use mine for everything.
Well, there might be a few things I don't, but otherwise, yes, I do too.
Okay, so, what I have to say in discussion is the strategic plan, since I'm so far away from everybody, the strategic planning process is still moving forward, and I, talked about it a little bit last fall, and said we'd be starting in January. Sarah and I have been meeting with the representatives from Orange Boy. So Orange Boy is the vendor that we use for, data marketing services, and they are also the ones that are facilitating our strategic plan. Kate Jacobs and Clark Swanson are the Orange Boy representatives working with Trails Regional Library. Tomorrow, library card holders and former library card holders will receive a survey to start the process. Stakeholders will be contacted individually for one-on-one interviews, so that includes board members, and you will be contacted by Clark Swanson. So when you hear his name and you hear the word Orange Boy, don't think it's a scam. It's real. It's a strategic plan. He's going to arrange a one-on-one interview with you. So please make yourselves available for that. Kate will be interviewing other stakeholders, including staff, community partners, and some business owners. Clark will also be interviewing some of our county commissioners. After the surveys and interviews are complete, focus groups will be held in April. These meetings will be a hybrid of socially distanced in-person and online gatherings.
Focus groups when?
In April. So if someone in the community comes to you and they're asking, what's this Orange Boy stuff? And tell them, please, yes, it's real, it's legitimate, please answer the questions, because that's gonna get us closer to what the community needs are. And the goal is to have the strategic plan finished by June, so that you all can vote on it, and so that it's applicable for fiscal year '22. It will help the new director as far as the direction of the library. It will help branch managers formulate goals for their location, for themselves, and also for their employees. So it's a really powerful thing to have in place. So if you have anybody from the community ask you about it, please encourage them to complete the survey. And attend the focus groups when they get the invitation.
Will they be a virtual meeting, or will it be a?
They're gonna be a hybrid, so they'll allow some people in, and then the rest would be online. That's just anticipating that we won't be fully out of the pandemic by then. If something happens and all clear, then of course it would be, you know, whatever the occupancy is for that location. But if it's how we are right now, then it'll be a hybrid.
I have a couple of things I'd like to say. That first off, you'll notice in Tanya's report, the foundation board at its meeting last month, Sarah and Tanya developed the homebound delivery service. And initially they wanted to start that next year, but the foundation donated $3,000 to get that started right away. And for anybody who wants to know, we're buying books. The post office covers the postage to and from the library to the customer, and from the customer back. So all we're buying is specialized bags. They tell us what they want to check out. We put it in the bag and mail it to them. When they're done, they mail it back. And I just think that's probably one of the greatest ideas that I've seen in a long time. And I appreciate the work that you put into that, Tanya and Sarah. The other thing I'd like to say is, Tanya, I wish you the best of luck in wherever your road takes you. Thank you for being here for the time you were. And that is all I have. Anybody else have anything?
I just want to thank Tanya very much. I know we've had a very difficult, especially with the pandemic and everything. Everything has been, you've done a great job. And I wish you the best.
Thank you both.
Goes for me too, even though I don't want you to leave.
And I think that we should continue meeting like this at least until the Johnson County lifts their mask mandate. So March 18th, here, 7 o'clock next, March 18th. Meeting is adjourned.
I am getting a hip replaced on Friday.
Yeah.
Okay. Good luck.
I don't make it back, then I'll have to.
Okay.
Big Continent is opening.
Did you